welcome to episode 5 of Cooped Up Cooking. We're doing something a little bit different today. We're actually doing a childhood recipe of mine, which I've gotten a little bit of access to from my mom. And it's gonna be maybe not the healthiest, but maybe not the most unhealthy. We're gonna do an oatmeal cake. Really simple. Probably most of you will have all of these ingredients in your home, and I'm going to offer a few suggestions for substitution if you don't have certain things. So come on over here and I'll show you the ingredients we're going to be using. Okay guys, so first thing you want to do is get your oats. So the recipe actually calls for instant oats. I don't have instant oats. I am using rolled oats. So I'm going to soften it up with some boiling water here, and it's actually going to add a little texture into the recipe. You can use instant oats or you can use regular. So in there is 1 cup of oats, and we have 1 1/4 cup of boiling water, and we're going to leave that to soak while I show you the rest of the ingredients. So if you follow me over here, we have our dry ingredients. So we're going to add some cinnamon in. I have some in the bottom there, but I also have these cinnamon sticks. I like to grate a little bit of fresh cinnamon over the top at the end. It just gives it a lot of flavor. You don't have to do that at home. The other thing I have here is a cup of white sugar, preferably half and half with brown and white, but I don't have any brown, so we're just going to use white, and that's okay. And then the other dry ingredients I have here is half a teaspoon of salt, and then I also have a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of baking soda, and that's going to all get mixed in with our whole wheat flour. So I have a cup and a half of whole wheat flour. You could use white or whole wheat, again, whatever you've got in your cupboard at home, guys. So we'll work with that. And then I'm going to move on to our wet ingredient section here, and what we have here is half a cup of butter. If you don't have butter at home, margarine is okay. Another thing you could do is shortening, but my preferred is definitely butter. I'm a chef. I always go for the butter. And then we have our 2 eggs, which I will crack and whip up. And then we also have a teaspoon of vanilla. Sorry, my hand's probably in the way there. A teaspoon of vanilla there. So those are our ingredients. Now I'll show you how we're going to put this together. It's really simple. Okay guys, in true Amy fashion, I've forgotten to remind you to preheat your ovens, so make sure that at the start you preheat your oven to 350 or 375. I have my oven at 375 because it's a little bit on the cooler side, so you know, if you know your oven, then go for it. Crank it up a little so you get that crispy brown on the outside of your cake. Okay guys, so you know that we already did our oats in the water, so that's going to come into play in a minute, but right now we are going to cream together our butter or margarine, whatever you're using at home, or shortening, with our 2 eggs right here, which I've already cracked and whipped up. And we're going to do our cup of white sugar, but like I said, if you have half a cup of brown, do half a cup of brown at home. That's going to give you a really nice result, but we're going to add that in there as well. There we go, that. And our teaspoon of vanilla is going to go right in there as well. And when I'm creaming, I like to use a fork, but you could use like the typical pastry creamer. I just find it's really easy with a fork, and everyone has a fork at home usually. So I'm going to really cream that together, almost whip it up. And you don't want any lumps, you don't want it too lumpy really. And we've got our butter at room temperature there, so that should just cream together really nicely. And you want it kind of fluffy, so try and get a little bit of air in there, right? Nice and fluffy. You don't have to worry about overbeating this because we don't have our baking soda or our baking powder in there. You never want to overmix those two in a baking recipe because it'll deactivate them and make your mix go flat. So that looks pretty good to me. So here I'm just going to grab those oats that have been soaking for about 20 minutes, and I did whole oats, but you can use instant oats. Whatever you've got at home. You could use flavored ones, you know, if you have something with like gingerbread spice or whatever, that would be perfect in here. And then we're just gonna whip that up. You can see it's actually getting really fluffy. It's gonna be nice and light and fluffy. Really nice moist cake. And then I'm gonna show you guys the dry ingredients. Okay guys, so now we're just going to mix together a few of our dry ingredients. So I have my cup and a half of whole wheat flour, but like I said, if you have white at home, that's perfectly fine as well. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of cinnamon. It's just going to go right in there. And then we're going to add in a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt. People always wonder why you put, or sometimes wonder why you put salt into baking recipes, but it's really great. It helps to bring out the flavor and stuff. So I'm just gonna give those a quick mix, nice and gentle. And then when I add that into my wet ingredient, I'm just gonna make sure I don't over mix it, okay? So I'm gonna bring these guys back in. Pop this guy in here, and we're just gonna fold that slowly. So we're not gonna mix quickly or rapidly. Just gonna fold it slowly. Oof. All right. Okay guys, now that that's been gently mixed and folded, we're gonna grease up our baking pan. You could use a bundt pan, you could use a 9x13 cake pan. Depending on the size of your pan will change your cooking time, but I can give you a chart which shows you how to convert your cooking times. Okay guys, so I've got my 9x13 here pan that I have greased with a little bit of butter, and for a little bit of added protection, I've added a layer of flour. So just dusted it with some flour. That'll really help the cake to not stick to the pan when you're cutting it into slices. So I'm gonna pop that in here, nice and gently. This mix is really fluffy and nice right now, so that is gonna be just beautiful. And we're just gonna spread that out nice and evenly. And then we'll be popping that into the oven. Okay guys, so that's been in the oven for 35 minutes now. We've got a nice golden brown on the outside here. And then a great way to check your cakes and make sure they're done is to just grab a fork or a knife and insert it gently into the center. And if it comes out nice and clean, it means your cake is all done and we're gonna be able to enjoy that, all right? Okay guys, so something that we used to always do when I was a kid when we had this cake was we would serve it with homemade applesauce, which is so simple to make. Unfortunately, I don't have any apples in my house, so I won't be able to show you how to make it, but I'm gonna post a recipe. It's really simple, really easy. You can do it stovetop in a pot, and at the end of it, it goes so well with this oatmeal cake. It's divine, okay?